So Dave Chappelle got near a microphone again. He did a
Mm.
special on Netflix, rounding out his deal with Netflix. It's called The Closer. It at least is currently available on Netflix. It received a lot of fire from Black organizations, from LGBTQ plus organizations, from Black LGBTQ plus organizations. So a lot of people don't like it. Nevertheless, this special is a lot about the perception that Dave Chappelle has of himself and the perception that other people have on Dave Chappelle, and him sort of working through that in a comedic fashion, right? And there's a lot of controversy about it. I'm not going to support Dave Chappelle or like harshly criticize him on this. That's not really like very little of it had to do with music, except for this one clip I'm about to show here from the special, that very much did have to do with music because it kind of buttresses a point I've made on Audioface a couple of times, and so I think it's worth sharing a little bit. So let's play that here.
A lot of the LGBTQ community doesn't know DaBaby's history. He's a wild guy. He once shot a and killed him in Walmart. Oh, this is true. Google it. DaBaby shot and killed a in Walmart in North Carolina. Nothing bad happened to his career. Do you see where I'm going with this? In our country, you can shoot and kill a but you better not hurt a gay person's feelings.
So that's kind of the tone of the special, really, is that Dave Chappelle's at different points saying that, listen, on the one hand, Dave Chappelle, speaking as a Black person, understands like struggle and systemic brutality in the United States and oppression in a way that, you know, could be argued that a lot of gay folks living today are very, very far removed from. That being said, it sort of can be framed and can be used in this like right wing paradigm of um justifying very real and very actual threats that are happening towards LGBTQ people and Black LGBTQ people and all kinds of folks
Mhm.
at the same time. And so it kind of goes back to this thing of um even though people argue about their ability to say whatever they want to and you know, talk about whatever they think, and comedians being able to have free speech and have those protections, I think a lot of those fears are overblown, because Chappelle has his own message and has his own like medium to say whatever he wants to, and he has that platform and he makes a lot of money doing it, and people will applaud him and watch the specials regardless. I think that if you watch the special as opposed to the media reaction, you can make up your own mind and not necessarily agree with Dave Chappelle, but also see that a lot of the media reaction is several far steps removed from like Dave Chappelle's actual feelings. I don't think he hates LGBTQ people or like trans people. I just think he speaks very, very inelegantly about it and feels like he has like a right to do so, even in comedy, which in sometimes are riding the line, and that's Dave Chappelle's comedy, but in other times are just like really cringe and really disgusting. So that's one point to be made there. I don't know if you had Sean, if you had thoughts. I saw the documentary. You might have more thoughts on the baby angle of it.
Um, Not really. Like I understand like where he's coming from because like we go over this all the time as well with artists getting canceled or artists having this and that. I mean, our prime example is Morgan Wallen. Like, look at him. He dropped a hard R, had this whole apology tour bullshit, and he's one of the highest streamed artists of this year and stuff. And we've talked about all these other things that artists have done, but they won't get like their careers won't be ruined for it or this or that. But it's one angle to do that, like do it from our angle, right? Of saying like what terrible people are doing. But then the way Dave Chappelle framed it was just not a very smart way of doing it. Granted, it is his comedy, but probably not the best way to say it. Like you could phrase it in a different way.
And there is a point to be said that like we on Audioface, for example, the Audioface angle of this is that like we were talking about the baby's history of not just like murder, but just like domestic violence and things like that, just with fans and things like that.
Yeah.
Before the AIDS stuff, like I was honestly surprised the AIDS stuff took him down, but very clearly, violence and degeneracy in rap music, the XXXTentacion rule, let's say, don't do anything for your career. If anything, only make them better.
Seriously.
But yeah, it's I think whereas Dave Chappelle is trying to say that, gay people have some particular power in the United States that black people don't, in media, or like the ability to do things. I just think that's a question of the audience here, because it's not like what Dave Chappelle is kind of trying to, on one point, again, not to spoil the whole special here, is that certain gay people act like they're part of an oppressed community until black people come around, and then all of a sudden they're white again. They're not gay. They don't have their like identities. They like assume that whiteness. And so he's talking about like DaBaby getting canceled for gay related things as an aspect of like white power, like white media figures and people in office would be upset, and people in power would be upset with, as opposed to killing black people or like violence against black women or whatever.
Right.
Which would the part where I come in is, that's not upsetting enough black people. Like, that's not upsetting enough like people of color and music fans in general. And that's something we talk about on the show all the time, about these double standards in the music industry.
Look at R. Kelly
to fight about. Yeah. That's a great example.
Look at people who are defending R. Kelly when he is guilty. Like, the verdict of the court is he is guilty for many different crimes. The evidence is there. All this other shit is there, obviously. But these people will still defend him and stuff. So, I mean, we've talked about ad nauseum here. So it's just, not the best way to phrase it. There are better ways to say it.
Yeah. And again, that being said, I don't like it all the way Dave Chappelle said this, but I think there are a lot of people who will just like jump on the internet, jump on cancel trains, and not hear about the fact that like half of the special is Dave Chappelle talking about a really close friend of his who is transgender. And it's not like that sounds worse. Like, oh, I have a transgender friend, so it's okay. And that's my criticism, is that like, you can't also like have this story about it and say like, oh, this makes me not transphobic or whatever. But I think in the context of comedy and in the context of understanding language, and when it comes from the heart, like where the intent comes from, it's important too. Because like in a political context, the late Michael Brooks did a lot of vocal impressions and impersonations of political figures. And, you know, he was a white guy and he would do a lot of vocal impressions of people of color. But his vocal impressions would be like Nation of Islam Obama. The idea that
Right-wing Mandela is my favorite.
Yeah, the idea that these would be caricatures that racists take of these people of color. And Michael Brooks is going, okay, these people are not actually this way. Nelson Mandela is not like a far right-wing populist. Like, Obama isn't a Nation of Islam radical. But what if he was? And so like
Mandela wasn't in favor for apartheid. But what if he was?
Right. And that comes in the context of Michael Brooks's political history and work that shows nothing but empathy and care for people of color and workers' movements and things like that. And obviously I'll plug like Michael Brooks's work and the Michael Brooks Legacy Project to check out those things, #NoPolitics. But it's to say that it's different depending on where the source is coming from. The context of it matters. And you can tell in Dave Chappelle's case, it's not that, oh, the jokes are well thought out and come from love, but like he has like, there are trans people in his life who he has had to learn from and like get called out and checked on. And you know, we could say Dave Chappelle is still learning, but I think to completely write him off as a transphobe or anything like that would also be inaccurate as well.
It's People like to jump to conclusions way too quickly.